Hello and welcome back to week 2 of the World Cup of Pokemon VGC, hosted by Victory Road in partnership with Elgato. My name is Jamie Boyd, and I'm going to be joined this week by the wonderful co-caster Ben Kiriakou. Ben, how much are you enjoying the World Cup so far?
It's been a great experience. We've got some really great things going on in Team UK at the moment, and it's been a real pleasure to get to work with all the guys again, and have that sense of community really come together over the last sort of couple of weeks while we've been all working together really hard and playing against countries. We're playing Peru at the moment, which has been an absolute pleasure so far. A little bit of that later on in the stream, and of course, it's great to look through all of the matches that have been going on and see who's done what, who's played what, and really come together as a worldwide community in this sort of event. Just fantastic.
We really have come together with 55 countries competing across this World Cup, the largest we've ever had. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how things unfold going forward. And speaking of how things will unfold, we can have a look at what we are going to be bringing to you on today's stream. We're going to be featuring 4 matches here. We're going to be starting off with Indonesia versus Hong Kong with Guntur Prabowo versus Leung, and then we're going to move on to Vietnam versus South Africa with Quang Ong versus Nico Beats.
Yeah, indeed, and some countries here that I've not had the pleasure of casting before, so really looking forward to seeing how different players in different communities approach these matchups, these games, the format. Of course, we're all playing in this sort of worldwide community we mentioned earlier, but everyone has a little bit of a different take, and you tend to find that different countries have different approaches to playing the game, and that's what's so exciting about this sort of tournament. But of course, coming into the last 2 games, at least of today, we have Taiwan versus Colombia, and of course the UK versus Peru, which is going to be a fun match. I played that earlier this tonight, and we're going to have some fun with that, I can tell you that.
Yeah, definitely be interesting to see that one. But we will have to wait just for a little bit. So we're going to be featuring that as our 4th match. We'll be starting off with Indonesia versus Hong Kong here, with Guntur Prabowo versus Leung. And we can see here they are currently 1-1, as we are just on the Friday at the moment. There's not going to be as many matches played. As we progress through the weekends, we will get more and more results. But it's only 1-1 at the moment, so anybody's game still for Indonesia or Hong Kong here.
Yeah, exactly. And it looks like a close game in the first matchup. You can see there Groudon versus Zacian in this restricted format. And of course, Kyogre mirror match coming out there from these 2 teams. So a little bit of similarity, a little bit of difference. And of course, it's in these sort of team sort of tournaments where you can all prepare together, maybe do a little bit of research on your opponent. These kind of team choices can be so important as to how these matches play out. Be looking forward to seeing what these 2 players are going to be bringing tonight.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have to see what they're going to be bringing, and we can have a little bit of a preview here, starting off with Guntur from Indonesia, going to be rocking that Lunala, so a Pokemon that we haven't seen too often as the restricted choice, but definitely an interesting pick here.
Yeah, certainly, and it's a little bit of an outside pick as well. And Lunala is one of those restricted Pokemon that gets such a good ability, but can be really taken down quite quickly with the ever-prevalent Incineroar and using those Dark and Ghost type moves that are available in the format. So really will be down to what his opponent is going to be bringing. But a few achievements here. You can see that top 32 of the Oceania International Championships and top 4 in Sydney Regionals and a Melbourne Regional Champion as well, 3 years in a row. So certainly a player that you'd expect to be keeping the consistency going. And you can see those results sort of traveling through 2018, 2019, 2020. And of course, now we're in 2021, maybe looking to get a few more results in the online world.
Definitely, and I think it's interesting to note that there's 4 out of 6 of the Pokemon that ended up winning the last restricted World Championships as well. So definitely some tried and true Pokemon coming out for Guntur here. But we can move on now and have a look at what Leung is going to be bringing. And it's going to be, speaking of tried and true Pokemon, I think we can see 6 of them there.
Yeah, definitely. Zacian is a Pokemon that almost needs no introduction. We saw so much of it in Series 8. It's just an absolute powerhouse. And actually, Lunala might match up somewhat well against Zacian, being one of the Pokemon out there, at least at full health, that can actually take a Behemoth Blade really, really well. And consistently, of course. even without dropping that boost that it gets from Zacian gets from its ability. But we can see here that Leung had a top 8 in the Hong Kong regionals in 2018, a regional champion in 2017, and of course in the senior division, a day 2 World Championships appearance in 2015. So a little bit older credentials going on there, maybe looking to bring back some results a little bit later on, of course. But certainly 2 players is quite exciting that definitely know how to get to the top realms of a tournament. And of course, we are going into team preview now. We are going to be seeing it from Guntur's perspective. So yeah, let's take it away with a match.
Yeah, so we're going to be having that Entei, Tapu Fini, Incineroar, Rillaboom, Stakataka, and Lunala coming out for Guntur. And there's going to be that Rillaboom, Zacian, Incineroar, Urshifu, we don't know which variety yet, Regieleki, and Landorus Incarnate.
Yeah, you usually see that Urshifu being the water variant, the rapid strike version on these sort of Zacian archetypes. And, you know, it really will depend on whether this Lunala is going for something like a Trick Room, along with that Stakataka and Incineroar. Could be a nice little core going on there for Guntur. And no such cores available for... for Leung either. Yeah. So... it's going to be a little bit of a difficult one maybe for Leung to maneuver around a little bit of speed control. We can see a little bit of a preview of that Entei item. That's going to play a big part in being able to do a lot of damage to that Zacian and Rillaboom. Maybe pick up a burn as well, of course, with Sacred Fire being probably one of the best fire moves out there. And yeah, so this interaction could be a little bit up and down with whether Trick Room's going to be going up or whether Leung decides to use that Entei to full effect.
Yeah, we will have to see what the both players have decided for here. And coming out for Leung's side of the field, it is going to be that Incineroar with the Rapid Strike Urshifu, as we can see now, going up against the Entei and the Lunala coming out for Guntur's side of the field.
Yeah, Intimidate not being able to affect that Entei, quite a big mechanic change for Inner Focus in this generation. Nothing new now. And of course, now we're going to see the interaction between the Entei and the Urshifu. Some Urshifu on these sort of builds on the Zacian teams do tend to be scarfed as well as other items, so could be we have a little bit of a tie in speed here between Entei and Urshifu, and I have to see how these players have trained their Pokemon, what items they're going to be using, but Entei not looking to stick around this turn.
Switching in that Rillaboom, probably expecting the Surging Strikes to be hitting that slot. Rillaboom would be a fantastic switch in for that. Of course, getting up that grassy terrain with that Grassy Surge and getting some fake out pressure onto the field as well. But it looks like that Incineroar is also going to be retreating for Leung's side of the field, going to be switching into that Zacian. So we'll have to see what is going to be coming out from this Lunala here. The Intrepid Sword, of course, going to give that +1 attack boost to the Zacian. And the Surging Strikes is going to go first before this Lunala here. And if it went into that Entei, it's not going to be doing too much damage to this now switched in Rillaboom, which is able to take that very comfortably, even with the 3 hits, always getting those critical hits, really not doing too much to that Rillaboom. So very good switch in for Guntur there. And the Meteor Beam is coming out from Lunala, almost certainly was going to target down that Incineroar, which is now a Zacian and would resist that very well, but you are going to still get your special attack increase, and with the Power Herb activation that is the item choice for Lunala here, Meteor Beam is going to go off in 1 turn and probably won't do too much damage to the Zacian, probably about roughly the same as the Surging Strikes did to that Rillaboom, but key for the Lunala, it is now at 1 stage of increased special attack.
Yeah, that's going to be quite big for this Lunala. It's really going to be putting on a lot of pressure. Rillaboom comes in with the fake out pressure from Guntur and can be used to use that Lunala to best effect. It really depends in this situation as to whether that Lunala wants to go for a Trick Room or not. You know, again, with the Urshifu scarfed or not, if the Urshifu is scarfed, then maybe there's a play where you can break the Shadow Shield on Lunala and then follow up with another attack, but not going to find out this turn. Zacian just returning to Leung.
Yeah, going to be switching straight back into that Incineroar here, and it's going to be getting that Intimidate down onto the Rillaboom, maybe allowing that Urshifu to be able to survive any grass type attacks that could come out from this Rillaboom. I'm going to be threatening Lunala with some dark type damage as well, but Surging Strikes is once again going to be coming out before any attacks of the Rillaboom as well. So there was no Grassy Glide, no fake out there coming from the Rillaboom. Surging Strikes is going to hit into that Lunala. The first hit is the only one that is affected by the Shadow Shield. The other 2 will be doing full damage here, which isn't actually too much damage to this Lunala, only taking taking still about a third damage, and a Moongeist Beam is going to be followed up by this Lunala, and it is going to be hitting into that Incineroar switch in. Still doing a nice chunk of damage thanks to that increased stage of special attack, but it is a U-turn coming out from the Rillaboom. No grass type attacks, just going to do a tiny bit of damage to that Rillaboom, but Keit's going to be able to pivot straight back out into another Pokemon for Guntur here.
Yeah, I really like that play from Guntur's side of the field, not playing anything too complicated, just going for some damage, using that increased stage of special attack from the Meteor Beam, and just pivoting out, taking advantage of the fact that Leung was likely to make a little bit more of a defensive play. Obviously, as we saw, the Zacian switched out for the Incineroar, and that really was to protect it. Now that Power Herb has been used up, though, the Lunala isn't going to be able to use Meteor Beam, at least this turn. Could charge up if Guntur really wanted to, but that Incineroar is looking somewhat safe, depending on what move is available to this Entei and what move that Guntur wants to go for. Obviously, there is still that threat of the Surging Strikes coming out, like we saw in the first turn, onto that Entei.
That might be why it's switching straight back into Rillaboom here, potentially wanting to take those Surging Strikes, which is once again going to come out from this Urshifu, and we'll have to see if it's going to target into that once Entei, and yes, it's going to hit that Rillaboom once again. So switching in twice now on this Surging Strikes does mean that this Rillaboom has been put just below half health, maybe going to put it just over after the Grassy Terrain recovery, but no access to the one-turn Meteor Beam anymore. It's going to be the Moongeist Beam instead coming out from the Lunala, and with the increased stage of special attack, it's going to do a lot of damage to this Urshifu and actually knock it out in one shot. So the Surging Strikes have left the board now, but Incineroar is going to be going for a parting shot here into the Lunala. No dark type attack coming out into this Lunala, just going to be pivoting out, dropping the special attack increase that it got from the Meteor Beam back down to neutral.
Yeah, this is really now hard for Leung. I think there was a little bit of trading going on there, but I think Guntur got the better end of the stick there with okay, so maybe we've lost the special attack boost from the Power Herb Meteor Beam, but Zacian coming in there for Leung is really only going to be able to target one Pokemon at a time. There is fake out pressure on the field from Rillaboom, that will go first, and Lunala isn't a Pokemon that suffers with being weak to, or being affected by fake out, should I say. And now that Urshifu has been dispatched, the Entei on Guntur's side of the field is somewhat free at the very least to be able to do a lot of damage. And whether or not that Zacian is able to pick up the KO on this Lunala with generally being a little bit more of a bulky Pokemon is all a bit up in the air. So while Leung managed to sort of put Guntur back onto sort of a little bit more of a level playing field, certainly not really in Leung's favor at the moment. So gonna have to do something, maybe a Swords Dance, maybe a substitute, try and take advantage of some pivoting options with that Incineroar coming in, and certainly some pivoting going on from Guntur here with the Rillaboom switching out yet again.
Well, speaking of Incineroar coming in, it is what it does best. It's going to switch straight back in for that Rillaboom, get the Intimidate down on the opposing Incineroar and the Zacian, bring it back down to neutral. Zacian going for a Protect here, maybe expecting the Fake Out to come out from the Rillaboom, but no Fake Out, just the Moongeist Beam hitting into that Protect, and the Flare Blitz is going to be the move of choice for this Incineroar, coming out from the young side of the field, targeting down that Lunala, and you would strongly expect that if it did carry a Dark move, it would have gone for it in that situation.
Yeah, very telling there, and could be actually Leung just really doesn't have as many tools as maybe you would once expect to deal with Lunala. Incineroar, a Pokemon known for running many different moves in its move pool, but Taunt is one of them that's very useful. We've already seen Parting Shot, we've seen Flare Blitz, likely a Fake Out there, although we haven't seen it just yet, so very likely that there is no Dark move to pressure that Lunala. Leung knows that, and he wants to play a little bit more defensively this turn.
You do carry the fire move, so Zacian is going to be threatened out there, but it is just going to be a Fake Out from the Incineroar on Guntur's side of the field, hitting into that switched in Rillaboom, and another Moongeist Beam is going to follow up from this Lunala, and if it hits into that Rillaboom, it'll still be able to do a reasonable amount of damage to it. That's just about half damage to that Rillaboom, but it is going to be it's not going to be taking a Parting Shot. The Incineroar on Guntur's side of the field is going to be the target for the Parting Shot, the Incineroar on the young side of the field.
Yeah, I like that Parting Shot targeting, maybe thinking that Incineroar is faster than Guntur's Incineroar, and maybe can get a a parting shot off before it goes for something like a Flare Blitz. That means that Rillaboom and Zacian are a little bit safer on the switch in and the pivot from coming into that Incineroar. But yeah, it's now really a game for Leung to try and find a way to get some damage off onto Guntur's side of the field, maybe try and remove that Lunala or Incineroar. We know Zacian is capable of both close combat and Sacred Sword, so depending on which one Leung has opted for, it will depend on whether that Incineroar can go down. But you know, if you don't start doing some damage onto that Lunala very soon, it's just going to carry on Moongeist beaming, maybe Psyshocking, and just doing a hell of a lot of damage to your team.
Speaking of a lot of damage, Zacian is going for the Behemoth Blade into the Lunala, and thanks to all that chip that has been racking up on that Lunala, it was in range for the knockout of that Behemoth Blade, and a U-turn is going to come out from this Rillaboom into the Incineroar, doing a nice chunk of damage as well, as being able to pivot straight back into that Incineroar, get the Intimidate down onto the opposing Incineroar on Guntur's side of the field. So if it was going for any Flare Blitzes into the Zacian, it would be able to take it a lot more comfortably thanks to this Intimidate, bringing it back down to -1 stages of attack. But it is just going to be a parting shot instead, going to be targeting down that Zacian, so it is back to neutral, but will be pivoting that Incineroar back for Guntur's side of the field, getting that Intimidate back in the back for Guntur, so it can come in, get the Intimidate down onto the Zacian and put it to -1 stage of increased attack.
Yeah, indeed, and Guntur bringing Entei out, and you were talking about bringing that Intimidate in. It looks like that Intimidate is going to come straight down onto the field. A really nice play there from Guntur, just allowing effectively two Intimidates to come out onto that Zacian. Is going to drop the attack of the Incineroar as well, and that's not so relevant with only Flare Blitz targeting two Fire-type Pokemon, but yeah, it's going to come down a little bit to which Incineroar has the faster Fake Out, because definitely Leung on this in this position really wants to try to pressure that Entei as much as he can, and unfortunately it's not able to be faked out, but at least you can fake out the Incineroar on Guntur's side of the field.
You can, but the Rillaboom is going to be getting its own fake out pressure back onto the field by switching in for that Zacian, but still not going to be the best of targets for this incoming Flare Blitz from the Entei. No Sacred Fire coming out, even stronger going for the Flare Blitz, definitely enough to pick up the knockout on that Rillaboom. So now Leung is down to their last two Pokemon here. Maybe the Incineroar will be going for a parting shot, as it is going for into that Entei to reduce it down, so the Zacian will be able to take that Flare Blitz a little bit better. But not going to be affected by the Intimidate at all, but can still be affected by the parting shot. But does need to switch into that Zacian now. There's no other target, and that Incineroar, if it's going for its own Flare Blitz, will be doing a nice chunk of damage to that Zacian, or if it's going for a parting shot, that is going to be a permanent drop onto the Zacian at this point. So the Intrepid Sword, increasing it to +1 stages, won't matter too much, but it is going to be the Flare Blitz instead. It's going to be doing some nice damage to that Zacian. That's putting it down into the red, so going to be in range of any other attack that could come out from Guntur's side of the field. And the Entei, if it's going to be carrying that Choice Scarf, it's going to be outspeeding the Zacian. Can't be faked out by the Incineroar, and that Zacian is feeling pretty pinned at the moment.
It really is, and there's really no way for Leung to actually damage that Entei at all. Only option being Flare Blitz on the Incineroar, and of course, with Guntur locking into Flare Blitz rather than Sacred Fire, is the fully accurate fire move that Guntur has available to him, so it's definitely not going to miss or have any opportunity that Leung can maybe take advantage of here. Yes, no fake outs, of course, as you mentioned, from that Inner Focus ability. Even at -1, definitely the Zacian is going to be in range, and we see fake out coming out here from Leung, just making sure that that's Inner Focus most likely, even though it's already been revealed from the Intimidate drops, and Flare Blitz coming out onto the Zacian, picking up the knockout, and it looks like it's going to be game 1 to Guntur.
It does indeed. Potentially getting the tiny bit of chip in case that Entei wasn't scarfed as well, so that the Zacian may be able to knock it out. But the Entei does carry that Choice Scarf, is able to outspeed the Zacian and knock it out with the Flare Blitz. Incineroar's going to get one more parting shot just for good measure onto the opposing Incineroar, switch into that Rillaboom, and now Guntur is definitely in the driving seat. There's not too much that the Incineroar on Leung's side of the field can do. You've got fake out pressure if you want to switch out the Entei as well, so that it can lock into a super effective move against this Incineroar. You definitely do have the option to do that. Rillaboom and the Incineroar, both themselves can't do too much to the Incineroar, but it's really, you just need to switch out that Entei, get it to lock into any of the super effective moves that it usually carries.
Yeah, indeed, and you've got fake out pressure coming out from the Rillaboom that just makes sure that happens nice and safely. It really is just a war of attrition now. Incineroar and Rillaboom on Guntur's side can just stay on the field, and it doesn't really matter if the Incineroar or Leung side of the field picks up a knockout, because that's a free switch in right back into that Entei, which does have a super effective move to hit that Incineroar. So really, every bit of damage that Guntur can do just brings it closer and closer for that Entei to make a guaranteed knockout here. And of course, switching out resets the parting shot from earlier, so he'll be coming out back in neutral, doing as much damage as possible. And we see the fake out coming out here from the Leung side of the field, possibly just taking his time and just letting the game play out to think about how he's going to adjust for game 2. But is a U-turn coming out there and a fake out from Guntur, so Entei's going to be just coming back in a little bit quicker, and we'll see this game go to Guntur this turn.
Yeah, no, I think that was actually a pretty smart fake out coming out from Leung's side of the field. There was nothing at all they could do for fake out U-turn, so you might as well try and gauge the speed tiers a little bit more of the Incineroars. You've seen your own Incineroar be able to move first, but it's like more confirmation by going for your own fake out, because so that was actually something coming out from Leung, and I actually quite like that play. There's nothing they can do at all. The Entei's just going to go for either Stomping Tantrum or Stone Edge, whichever move it wants to lock into. Most likely going to be Stomping Tantrum if it wants to go for that 100% accurate move, but yeah, this Incineroar has been pretty much pinned for the last few turns, and again, going for another fake out. No, you might as well at this point, and then it's going to be Flare Blitz as the move of choice. Okay, so not going to be revealing any other information for Leung's side of the field. Maybe fishing for the information of whether that's going to be one of those pinch berries, which indeed it is. So again, some more information that has been revealed coming out from the Incineroar. It is going to be holding that Aya Papa Berry. So it doesn't really matter if you do go for the Stomping Tantrum at this point. Flare Blitz is going to eventually beat this Incineroar, especially when you got 2 of them as well, and they've only got their own Flare Blitz. So might as well try and get as much information as you can. Both players being able to do that with the fake out coming out from Leung to try and gauge the speed tiers, the Flare Blitz being able to reveal that pinch berry as well from Guntur's side of the field.
Well, indeed, and Leung probably didn't see that Flare Blitz coming and didn't want to reveal that information ideally. If you knew that that was how Guntur wanted to play, maybe you forfeit the game there and just go on to game 2 as he has done now. So a little bit, it's a really good exchange of information for both players. Of course, as you said, Jamie, that test of information there is so vital, because it looked like Leung's Incineroar was the faster one, and that's going to play a big role in the next game, I think, with these 2 players, because if your Incineroar is going to be the faster one, then you know that you can fake out first. That means you know that you can put more pressure on, and maybe be a little bit more proactive with the Zacian earlier game. We saw that it did quite a lot of damage, obviously, to that Lunala when it chose to try and pick up the knockout. So I think that's going to be quite vital going into game 2.
Yeah, it's always one of the awkward things with Incineroar. Do you want the faster fake out, or do you want the slower parting shot, so that you would be able to get your switch in after you reveal what your opponent switched in, maybe get the drop on them. Definitely some key information going forward for the Incineroars here. We've seen that Leung is probably going to be the faster one, and it took them quite a while to break through that Lunala, but then at that point they'd lost their Urshifu, which was probably the key Pokemon for breaking through the Entei, which ended up sealing the endgame for Guntur pretty well.
It did, and I think that's going to have to be the target for Leung to really protect a little bit more. We saw that Entei locking into Flare Blitz, and if you see Flare Blitz, so you obviously that it's Scarf at this point if on Leung's side of the field, and maybe you think it's going to have some other good moves that it can, or good coverage moves that it can lock into, but it's Scarf. That means you can target it. If you've got Urshifu on the field, you can pressure it. So maybe there's a conversation about how does the Urshifu maybe break down that Lunala a little bit quicker, that protects maybe both the Urshifu and the Zacian from being pressured and having to switch out so quickly. How do you do that while pivoting around those fake outs that are coming around from Incineroar and Rillaboom? We will have to see. And here we are going into turn 1 of game 2.
Yeah, we'll have to see if Leung is going to be adjusting at all to try and be able to beat that Entei. And we're going to see the Pokemon come out with that Landorus Incarnate and the Zacian. Landorus definitely a Pokemon that can take care of Entei pretty well, but it is going to be the Rillaboom and Lunala coming out for Guntur's side of the field.
Yeah, and this is a really different position overall from game one. I really like the Landorus adjustment coming in from Leung. It does put a lot of pressure onto the Entei and does a lot of damage to Lunala as well. Also can carry Sludge Bomb, so can pressure the Rillaboom, and it's one of those Pokemon that pressures both Rillaboom and Incineroar potentially at the same time, which is really important for breaking down that pivoting core of these two sort of fake outers and Pokemon that switch into each other really well. Of course, Lunala in a similar position that it was previous game, but unlikely to go for this Meteor Beam early doors. And of course, we saw that the Incineroar on Leung's side of the field didn't have the access to any dark moves, and so probably going to see that come out a little bit later on in the game. But just a fake out starting off the game from this Rillaboom.
Substitute going up for the Zacian as well, as the Lunala does go for Trick Room now. So the speeds are going to be reversed here. And now the Rillaboom and Lunala should be outspeeding the Zacian, but getting up a substitute is going to block those Intimidates that could come in from the Incineroar.
Yeah, really nice position here for Leung in some way, because, you know, you've got your Zacian protected. It's also protected from Intimidate, so and that sort of first attack that Entei could potentially come off. And of course, now Trick Room's on the field. Both Landorus and Zacian are going to have to fear a little bit from big attacks from the Rillaboom, and of course that Meteor Beam and Moongeist Beam that can come out from the Lunala.
See if that is going to be coming out from the Lunala this turn, as the Landorus is going to switch into Rillaboom and Zacian is going to go for the Protect here. So no substitute breaking this turn. U-turn is going to hit into that Protect, so Rillaboom on Gun's side of the field is staying on the field this turn. It is not going to be able to pivot out with that U-turn hitting into the Protect, and the Lunala is going to be charging up with the power herb of that Meteor Beam, increasing its special attack by 1 stage, but does end up missing what was the Rillaboom switch in. So lost out on some damage there, but at least you still get your +1 in special attack.
Yeah, the +1 being probably the most important thing that could come out in this set. And of course, Incineroar on Leung's side of the field likely to be able to just, you know, do some parting shots and etc. Maybe see some pivoting this turn as both players just readjust. Possible that Rillaboom is slower than Lunala naturally, and so could maybe break a substitute with a Wood Hammer and follow up with a powerful Moongeist Beam, but none of that this turn, just a little bit more of a defensive play.
It's going to switch straight back out into Incineroar. Going to give up on the U-turn for this time. Just going to switch straight out into the Incineroar, as the fake out does land into what was that Rillaboom, and now hitting the Incineroar. And Moongeist Beam is going to be coming out from the Lunala. Going to be able to do some good damage with that increased stage of special attack here, and is definitely going to be strong enough to break this substitute of the Zacian here. So the Zacian is now exposed. It can be faked out once again, but no, it can't, because it is going to set up another substitute. So a really nice play from Leung here.
Yeah, that's clever. That's a really good way, especially with grassy terrain on the field, to just wait out a little bit. Trick Room, of course, when you're recovering health every turn, you can pay the cost of substituting more than once, and Rillaboom coming in and getting that fake out off onto the field means that at worst case the substitute doesn't break. You take a little bit of damage on Rillaboom, although they're likely to carry Assault Vest and be able to take attacks like Moongeist Beam even at an increased stage of special attack. You just make sure that Zacian stays on the field just that little bit longer.
Rillaboom doesn't want to stay on the field, though. It is going to be switching out into the Urshifu. So Urshifu is going to be switching in here, potentially to take a Flare Blitz that could come out from the Incineroar. And Zacian is once again going to be protecting itself, trying its best to stall out this Trick Room that Lunala has set. And it is Flare Blitz that is going to be launched off by the Incineroar into what was the Rillaboom. Not doing too much damage to that Urshifu at all. A very good switch in there. But the Moongeist Beam is not going to hit that Urshifu on the switch, and it is once again going to hit into the Protect of that Zacian.
Yeah, so a little bit surprising there with the play that Guntur made to Flare Blitz what was the Rillaboom. Maybe expect to follow up with a Moongeist Beam just to cover any switches. If the Rillaboom just goes down to the Flare Blitz, which is definitely possible, the Moongeist Beam will just retarget into the Zacian slot and maybe pick up the knockout there. But we're still in Trick Room, and now that Zacian is protected, a combination of the Flare Blitz and the increased stage of special attack Moongeist Beam could be enough to pick up the knockout on this Zacian. Of course, it will be down to Guntur to choose which Pokemon he wants to target, because again, like in the previous game, that Urshifu could be knocked out this turn.
Could be, but the Zacian has switched out even with its substitute, so it's going to be sacrificing the substitute, switching into the Rillaboom, and the parting shot is going to hit into that Rillaboom, decreasing its attack down again and pivoting it out that Incineroar once again. So a very interesting choice to sacrifice the substitute of the Zacian there, and it wouldn't have been broken by a parting shot, so it would have been able to get off at least a Behemoth Blade that turn. But Rillaboom for Guntur's side of the field is going to be switching in, and we are going to see that Moongeist Beam be fired off. We saw it was enough to knock out the Urshifu in that game one. It is going to be targeting down that Urshifu once again, and it is taken out. A critical hit just for good measure.
Just for good measure, indeed. That Urshifu is definitely not surviving that kind of attack, and certainly not with a critical hit. Loved that play, though. If Guntur decided to play a little bit more aggressively and go for an attack with the Zacian, just chance his arm at getting some damage off onto that Lunala, break the Shadow Shield, or do something else that ends up being positive, the parting shot would have gone through that substitute being a sound-based move and still drop the attack and special attack of the Zacian. So covering bases with the parting shot while knocking out a key target in that Urshifu, and now we see a little bit of fake out coming out onto the field, and Behemoth Blade likely going to be targeting down that Lunala and not doing a lot of damage at all.
You can see the benefit of that Shadow Shield. Not doing any damage to that Lunala throughout the entirety of Trick Room means that it takes that Behemoth Blade really comfortably, is able to fire off another Moongeist Beam here, and is able to pick up the knockout on that Zacian. The Rillaboom on Guntur's side of the field won't be able to move this turn thanks to that fake out, but that is a very strong Moongeist Beam coming out there to pick up the knockout on the Zacian.
Yeah, really strong, and we can see there that the grassy terrain has actually left the field, which makes a slightly different play not possible, where maybe you tried to stall out that turn, protect on the Zacian, then go for a glassy glide to break the Shadow Shield before attacking into it with Zacian, but not possible with grassy terrain not on the field. And now it's down to the last two for Leung, I believe, with Rillaboom and Landorus against everything on Guntur's side of the field.
And on Guntur's side of the field is going to be taking that Earth Power coming out from the Lander. It's going to be doing a lot of damage, but not picking up the knockout onto the Lunala. The Rillaboom here on Young's side of the field is going to be going for the U-turn into the Rillaboom on Guntur's side of the field, but because they're down to the last two Pokemon, there's going to be no pivoting out here. Moongeist Beam is going to be fired off once again from this Lunala into the Landorus, picking up another knockout onto this Landorus. Now it is just down to this Rillaboom on the young side of the field. That is going to take a Wood Hammer from the opposing Rillaboom, doing a reasonable chunk of damage there. But yeah, now it's just Rillaboom against the world.
Yeah, Rillaboom is against a world that's probably not too favourable for it. Only access to really grass-type moves and U-turn most likely. And of course we still have that Entei likely in the back for Guntur's side of the field, and we've seen Flare Blitz, and Flare Blitz doesn't miss, so you know, little U-turn going on there is faster than the opposing Rillaboom, so that's something for Leung, but not enough to knock out either Pokemon on Guntur's side of the field. And two attacks following up from the Lunala and the Rillaboom will make this 2-0 to Guntur and make Indonesia 2 to Hong Kong's 1.
And not quite all 4 KOs there for the Lunala, the Rillaboom having to get that last bit of damage with the U-turn. But yeah, there didn't really seem to be a great answer for the young side of the field for that Lunala. Went for the Flare Blitz with the Incineroar into the Lunala when it had the opportunity, if it was carrying a Dark move, to go for that. And that was very key in this matchup, and not being able to threaten that Lunala too heavily. Was able to stall out Trick Room easily enough, but then didn't damage the Lunala at all throughout that Trick Room. It was just able to fire off Moongeist Beam after Moongeist Beam, and you saw how much damage it was doing. Even with just a tiny bit of chip on the 3 Pokemon it got the knockout, I was able to pick up the KOs there, so definitely needed to find a better answer for the Lunala, but a very strong pick of the restricted choice coming out from Guntur.
Yeah, definitely, and really well played. And Trick Room coming up in the second game, but not the first, I think is a really nice way to play this sort of team, and really does showcase the options that Guntur had available to him. Of course, there was that Scarf Entei that was always sort of kicking around in the back, but that was used a lot more in game 1 to great effect, of course. Game 2 didn't really play so much of a part, and Lunala was able to just, as you said, Jamie, just keep firing off those Moongeist beams, and even if it did miss the Meteor Beam in onto that Rillaboom, didn't really affect the outcome of the game just because of the amount of pressure that Guntur was able to come on. But, well played to both players. It's really great to showcase both these two countries and, of course, these two players. We're going to go to a short break now, but we'll be back for the next match between Vietnam and South Africa.